there have been a lot of updates about HBO Max bringing the Snyder Cut to that streaming service. Let's talk about everything we know and that we think we know about Zack Snyder's Justice League. What's up, everybody? It's Josh. Welcome back to the channel. Smash that like button like you're training to fight a god. And let's get right into this video. Okay, so through the hype and the crap talking, the crow eating, the victory lap, and just general noise out there on the internet, there's actually some pretty cool information about what might be happening with the Snyder Cut. So let's break that down. Now, much of what we're about to talk about is from the Hollywood Reporter's article that they did about this yesterday, and also Grace Randolph's scoop that she ran, kind of talking about the things she knows about it behind the scenes. By the way, Grace did get a big win here. She deserves it, and she deserves to take her victory lap. So first of all, let's start with what it's going to be. Now, there's debate currently behind the scenes on whether it will be a big film or if it will be split up into 6 different episodes. Now, the Hollywood Reporter is reporting that that's up in the air. Grace is saying it will absolutely be the 6 episodes. And I'm just going to try to save my speculation, my opinions on everything until we get to the end of the video. There's actually a lot of details to sort of break down. Okay, next up, it's important to note that the Snyders are reassembling a lot of their post-production team. This includes people that are doing digital effects. It includes people working on sound, editors, things like that. And also, they are bringing many of the actors back. A lot of the actors actually were, they got calls from Zack earlier this year about how they might be needed for it. Crazy stuff, guys. Crazy stuff. But okay, so a lot of the actors are coming back. The post-production team is coming back from the Snyders. This is all really crazy. Oh, and I should note, Grace is actually saying that there will be some cameos, some people showing up that weren't in the original cut with the additional photography that they're going to do. And she kind of hints that you can just look at the people that have supported, like very much so supported the release of the Snyder Cut movement. The people that come to mind for me are Dave Bautista and Simu Lee, right? So who knows, man? Maybe those characters or those actors could show up in the Snyder Cut. Really cool stuff. So Zack actually did say this to the Hollywood Reporter about it. He said, it will be an entirely new thing, and especially talking to those who have seen the released movie, a new experience apart from that movie. Because if you didn't know, Zack Snyder, to this day, has never watched Joss Whedon's Justice League movie. I think that is awesome. Like, he's an absolute mad lad. Like, he's an absolute mad lad. Like, he might not be able to tell the full truth, but he can at least say, yeah, I never watched that thing. You know what I mean? That's like a subtle way of saying how he feels. He goes on to talk about how audiences probably only saw 1/4 of what he did. Okay, so this part I found really interesting. That says here, 2 years after the movement was created, it reached its zenith, and hashtag release the Snyder Cut is to this day the most tweeted hashtag about a movie that Warner Brothers has ever made, but it's a movie they never released, says Snyder. It's a weird stat, but it's cool. So it says here that the Snyders got a phone call about this, and they had to start figuring out how to actually assemble the cut. So the way the story goes is Zack had a thumb drive with his cut, the cut that he did turn into Warner Brothers before he walked away from the project, okay? Now, it is fair to say that that is not a completed movie, okay? And there's this big narrative thing out there. We're going to get to this in a second here because, like, the people in the media are like, it doesn't exist. It never existed the way people thought it was. Look, we'll get into that. But the cut that he had that did spark the whole release the Snyder Cut thing, it was a real thing, and he had it. But he never really thought that he'd actually finish it or whatever. But after he gets, like, a phone call, which I'm actually not even sure what this phone call was, but the Snyders decide, okay, let's start actually piecing this thing together and talk about what it would take to finish it. So they edit it together. They did screen it earlier this year. Now, so much is coming out about this screening. This happened in February with Warner Brothers executives, okay? So many different people have opinions about this. You know, this is that thing that Andy Signore sort of got into trouble with because he was saying, look, people at Warner Brothers hated this cut. People that were literally there were in Twitter, like, back and forth with Andy being like, no, I can't confirm that. Some people hated it. A lot of people loved it. You know, that sort of thing. This is where all the buzz started back up again about the Snyder Cut, because what happened was, apparently after that meeting, it looked kind of good. Like, it started to actually look like it could be. This is where that $20 million thing comes from. Kevin Smith talked about this, etc., etc. From there, Zack goes on to call some of the actors that were involved originally to mention that their services might be needed. And I just think this is so cool. The first person he calls is Ray Fisher. Okay, now we've talked about this before, but Zack Snyder at one time called the arc of the cyborg character the heart of the Justice League movie. The heart of the Justice League movie, right? And what we saw with Whedon's version was just nothing like that. It didn't resemble that at all. And so the thought was, yeah, there has to be this big story there that we are missing. Okay, some of it's even in the trailers that it gets cut, right? So he calls that dude first. I just think that's great, and I can't wait to see what he does with that. Now, there was something Deborah said in the interview that I thought was really interesting and actually can help us kind of fit some of this puzzle together, at least for me, right? She said one of the goals here is ultimately to spend more time with these characters to watch them develop into the heroes we know from the comics. And so it really does seem like the effort of what Zack was building towards was getting to the versions of the superheroes that we know for the comics. A little bit more of the Boy Scout, a little bit more of that kind of thing going on with these characters, but he was going to build to it naturally through this postmodern lens. That's what I got from that. I think that's really important to note. Now, I want to talk about a couple other things that aren't in official reports, but people are talking about. First of all, Joe Manganiello actually tweeted talking about how there was this original post-credit scene. Not the post-credit scene we saw for Joss Whedon's, but a different one with Deathstroke and with Batman. Because remember, once upon a time, guys, Batman versus Deathstroke was going to be the Ben Affleck Batman movie spinning out of Justice League, okay? In fact, the first time we saw Manganiello in the new Deathstroke costume was during a screen test on the lot for Justice League. That's totally real. Got me really excited. I can't wait to see what that actual post-credit scene will be. Now, next up, this is really interesting because Kevin Smith, in his interview where he's talking about this cut, actually talked about how Batman was going to die, and it had something to do with Darkseid, right? So we're sort of like, what I can gather from what people are talking about is that that was going to be maybe in Justice League 2 or 3, because remember, he had like a 5-film arc, and one of the ideas was that Batman was going to die, and this would have something to do with Darkseid, and it would create a sort of a new Batman, or Robin or something taking over. So I don't know if Batman's going to die in the Zack Snyder Justice League cut, but there was sort of that effort out there, or that idea for his arc of films, which is a whole nother conversation that we have to have about, like, where do we go from here? Because Zack had this big story, right? But in either case, I just wanted to clarify, because I don't think Batman is going to die in the Zack Snyder version. And I know that there are some people saying that, so I just wanted to clarify that. Now, two other things here. There was a lot of talk that a younger Darkseid was going to be in the movie and have some interaction with the gods earlier on in the film, or that Darkseid in general was going to be in the movie, even as an older person. I think originally Darkseid was going to be the one that actually killed Steppenwolf. It wasn't even going to be the heroes. Steppenwolf was going to make it through to Apocalypse, barely escaping the Earthlings, and Darkseid was essentially going to be like, you failed me, and Darth Vader his ass, which is awesome. I am a big Darkseid fan. I'm really hoping we get him, and I think that would be great for them to do and really market for the HBO Max release. And then there's a sort of combo possibility of both Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern, like a new Green Lantern showing up in the film as well. Remember that crazy scene in one of the trailers where Alfred is saying, "Oh, finally you've showed up. I just hope it's not too late." And there's that green glow in his glasses. Well, a lot of people think that was going to be a Green Lantern, and Zack apparently did have a lot more Green Lantern in that movie than Joss Whedon's cut had in it. And so I think it's very possible we could see a Green Lantern, maybe even Hal Jordan, in this series. And what a crazy way to then spin out whoever they decide to be Hal Jordan for the Green Lantern show over there with Jeff Johns, right? Wouldn't that be kind of wild? I don't know if it's going to happen, but that would be cool. And also Martian Manhunter. I'd be really into that. So what do I think? Well, first of all, there's a couple things in the THR article that I didn't talk about when breaking down information because it's all PR fluff, okay? There's a lot of stuff in there about the struggle that Zack was going through, his family struggles, and that whole situation at that time. And there's also stuff in there to indicate that there was never like an actual Snyder Cut, right? That is all mainstream media fluff, and I'm sorry, it just is. I'm not trying to really like dog on the game like some other people would do. I get it, but as far as like for my viewers, I'm just going to tell you right now, I think that's mostly BS. Now, Zack and the Snyders, they do know how to play ball. My man has been good about this. He's been a good soldier, even though he's been teasing and even though he's been loyal to his fans and he hasn't seen the movie. He's been good on the PR side of this thing, okay? And so he's playing ball with the Hollywood trades to help the image of the Warner Brothers studio. I get it. Scratch your back, scratch mine, that sort of thing. But as far as what I think it's BS, and I think Warner Brothers did him incredibly wrong, and I think that's the real story. Also, mainstream media trying to cover their butt for saying that a Zack Snyder cut never existed. That is also probably just the studio and the trades playing nice, scratching each other's back, and I get it. Zack has to say what he's got to say about that, but as far as what I want to convey to you guys, again, I think that's crap. Like, he clearly had enough of a cut for him to never stop thinking about it, never watch the new film, and want to work on it again and do this. He wouldn't be doing all of this if he didn't have a cut, okay? So the Zack Snyder cut did exist before. It's going to be worked on, and it's going to exist in its fully realized version next year on HBO Max. Now, I want to talk about what Deborah Snyder said about getting to the realized versions of these characters. That is so important because behind the scenes, not just with Warner Brothers and Zack Snyder, but with Henry Cavill himself and some other people involved with DC, including Joss Whedon, but also Jeff Johns. Jeff Johns is one of these people that wanted to do the more comic booky version of these characters. Henry Cavill was someone that wanted to do a more comic booky version of Superman, the Boy Scout, right? Not so dark and gritty. Well, I think Deborah saying that is talking about how all they want to do is take from the version they started and work through those characters to get to the more comic book realized versions. I think that's actually a compromise, and I think that's something really interesting, sort of in the PR sense for the studio, the Snyders, and all the actors involved. I mean, frankly, I think it's awesome, and I think it's really good, but I don't know if that's actually what Zack was trying to do, but I'm willing to say, hey, that's still something I'm interested in seeing. And it's the perfect way to merge that crowd, right? Because think about this. Warner Brothers is in an interesting spot because if they bring in a bunch of people that absolutely love the Snyder Cut and they love that darker side, well, it's clear they've already moved past that, right? With their big movies. Wonder Woman 1984, big, colorful, poppy. Shazam, big, colorful, poppy. Aquaman, big, colorful, poppy. They're going in a different direction than Zack did. They're going to the comic book versions. But what she said there, even though it's just a super small part of this article, is actually probably a super big deal for Warner Brothers and how they want to navigate the PR side of this, right? How are we going to get these fans on board for the other stuff? We're going to make them understand that we're trying to take from this version and work towards the other version of the DC films. That's brilliant. And lastly, I just want them to do it as a series. I think a big, like, crazy movie would be very interesting, but for me, I'm more interested in a series. By the way, did a talk with Adam from Fanjecture earlier today on the morning stream over on our live streaming channel. You definitely want to go check that out if you want to get our full details about the business side of this deal and why it's so good for almost all parties involved except Joss Whedon. But that's just my personal take. So that's it, guys. That's all of the news and then some of the non-news that it's speculation, right? It's what I think is going on. I just wanted to try to be honest with you. That's what I think is really going on. So let us know what you think about all of these details and what do you think's going on between the studio, the fans, and all this interesting stuff. It's a very interesting time. I'm really curious what people think. Let us know in the comment section below. And now let's shout out Gerard Smith. Indeed, the next movie Zack Snyder is doing is Army of the Dead for Netflix, and baby, am I excited to see that film. So shout out to you, Gerard, and now let's ask another nerd card question before we get out of here. I want to know what actor from the Man of Steel movie was rumored to actually be Martian Manhunter and show up as Martian Manhunter in the Justice League. Answer that question in the comment section below. If you absolutely need more nerdy content in your life, click or tap over there to watch some more of our videos, or come by our live streaming channel where we live stream for an hour every day, Monday through Friday, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like this video if you liked it, and if you want to take your support to the next level and join the list of amazing people you see listed below, check out our Patreon for some behind-the-scenes content. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.